Breakout. So for my first mid-round league winner, I'm going with Ronald Jones for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Teams up with Tom Brady this season, and I can't believe his ADP is where it is. It's running back 32 right now, which is the seventh round, and he finished as the RB 25 last season in full PPR. So somehow he finished as the RB 25 last year in a weird situation, living in like some sort of alternate universe vortex with that Tampa Bay team with Jameson 30-30 and things like that. Finished as the RB 25, and somehow this year he bumps back to the RB 32. So maybe there's more running backs in the mix this season, but that doesn't make a lot of sense to me when Ronald Jones had his situation improve drastically in the offseason, and he's really continuing to improve as a pro. He saw a huge step, a bigger step than any other player from year one to year two last season. So Ronald Jones, if we look at his stats last year, he had 172 attempts for 724 yards and 6 touchdowns. That's 4.2 yards per carry. Not bad considering his rookie season. I think he was at like 2 point something yards per carry. So saw a huge step forward in his efficiency, saw a huge step forward in the number of his attempts. This is a guy who was a second rounder just 2 seasons ago. So we know the talent is there. In the passing game last year, Jones had 40 targets for 31 receptions and 309 yards. Not incredible receiving volume, but he was getting work in the passing game. One is the obvious, Tom Brady comes into town, so you got to think this Tampa Bay offense is going to be a bit more efficient. They were high volume last season, but the efficiency should go up with Tom Brady. And the other big thing is Peyton Barber is gone. That was this classic give it to Peyton Barber and let him cram it up the middle game plan for the Bucs, and he's gone now. So yes, they bring in Keyshawn Vaughn. I'll get into him a little bit later and the skill set that he adds alongside of Ronald Jones, but I think Peyton Barber was really cutting into Ronald Jones because their skill set and their mold was almost the same. So Peyton Barber leaves 154 carries and 6 rushing touchdowns of his own, and I actually took the liberty to look at the Bucs last season inside of the 5 and inside of the 10, because I was a Ronald Jones owner last season, and there was nothing more frustrating than seeing the Bucs get inside the 5 or the 10 and Peyton Barber cram it into his left guard 3 times in a row, and Ronald Jones never see the field. So I looked at their carries, and Ronald Jones only had 2 attempts inside of the 5-yard line last season.
Wow.
And he scored on both of them. Peyton Barber was 8 attempts inside of the 5, and he only scored on 4. And then Dare Ogunbowale actually had 7 attempts inside of the 5. Must have been a 2-minute drill or something where they got a bunch of carries inside the 5. He only scored on 2 of them. So Ronald Jones was the most efficient out of those guys. And I actually went back and looked at inside the 10-yard line, and Ronald Jones only had 10 carries inside of the 10-yard line, and 6 of the 10 went for a touchdown. That was the best touchdown rate inside the 10-yard line of all running backs with at least 10 attempts inside of the 10.
Wow.
So you look at this situation, Ronald Jones was effective inside the 5. He was effective inside the 10, just didn't really get the opportunity. There's no way Ogunbowale is getting touches in there this season, and Peyton Barber's gone. So Ronald Jones should see all of the goal line in red zone work on this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense that you would figure would score more touchdowns and more rushing touchdowns in 2020. I think there is a very realistic path for Ronald Jones to get 12 touchdowns this season with Tom Brady, which would put him way ahead of his current ADP. And then you look at this Buccaneers team this season, the mold is a little bit different. Last year, their O-line was 23rd in run blocking, not great. They brought in a first-rounder in Tristan Wirfs as an offensive tackle, signed another offensive tackle from the Colts who has 35 starts in 4 seasons with them. His name is Joe Haig. He was a reserve, kind of a swing offensive lineman. That should help that group as well. And then the big piece for the Bucs is Keyshawn Vaughn, a guy whose ADP is right around the same area as Ronald Jones. And I can't believe that Keyshawn Vaughn and Ronald Jones are being drafted in the same area. Ronald Jones has an established trust now with Bruce Arians. I know he got benched a couple times last season for pass protection and things like that, but if you just look at his rookie to sophomore year, he took huge steps forward in this offense. I expect that to continue. He's going to be the goal line guy, the guy getting the touchdowns. So I don't know why Keyshawn Vaughn comes in as a 3rd-round pick, 7th running back off the board this season in the draft, and is immediately like being taken ahead of Ronald Jones. Steph, between Keyshawn Vaughn and Ronald Jones, which guy would you rather have in PPR this year?
I mean, I'm with you on the RoJo hype. I do like Vaughn a lot, but I see him fitting more into that, receiving back, scat back type of role, whereas RoJo is going to be more of the, goal line power type back. We'll see if that remains stays true throughout the season, but I have a hard time believing that both of these guys are going to finish, in the same realm. Like, I feel like one is definitely going to rise above the other. Maybe this, RoJo totally busters out and it's just Keyshawn Vaughn who takes over. But either way, I mean, it's silly to me that they're both going pretty much at the same ADP.
Yeah, I agree, and I have that actually in my notes. Keyshawn Vaughn is more of a change of pace back that can catch the ball. He can run it okay between the tackles, but I think his skill set complements Jones really well, and I think some of the touches that he gets are actually going to cut into Agumbawale's touches because Vaughn can get it done in the receiving game. He's a decent pass protector. He can run the ball as well, so I think he's actually going to vulture a lot of Dare Agumbawale's work as well as cut into some of that volume that Peyton Barber saw last season. So right now for Keyshawn Vaughn, I have him at around 9 carries a game and 3 targets a game in support of Ronald Jones. So I do have him as being involved, but I think there's still plenty of rushing volume to be had for Ronald Jones. And one last thing I want to mention about this Bucs offense, I looked at Tom Brady's past 5 seasons because we all know he loves checking it down to James White. Rex Burkhead is even involved in the passing game. He's a running back. I was throwing it to Danny Woodhead back in the day. So over the past 5 seasons, Brady has targeted the running back position at least 130 times in each season. And last year, the Bucs only had 113 targets to the running back. So no, I'm not saying necessarily with a new system and a new team that Brady's going to hit that 130 mark. But I think it's a safe bet to say he's going to get somewhere between 115 and probably 140 targets to the running back position this season. I don't think there's any chance that between Agumbawale and Keyshawn Vaughn, they're going to eat up 120 targets to the running back spot. So that leaves plenty of volume for Ronald Jones to get some checkdowns in this offense. You think about what Brady does. If it's a pass play and the pocket's collapsing, he doesn't have the mobility to scramble out, extend the play, hit a receiver that's mirroring him down the field. He just has to turn and check it down to the running back. So I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities for Jones to hit a pass protection and turn around and catch a pass from Brady. So his receiving volume should at least give him a decent baseline. I'm not saying he's going to be elite, but it should be there this season. So right now I have Ronald Jones as a running back 2, but if things go right with touchdowns and with passing work this season, there is a ceiling for him that's actually a running back 1 in that top 12.
Wow. Another thing, too, that I'm surprised you didn't mention is that Bruce Arians typically isn't one to give a lot of snaps and a lot of involvement to rookies that he drafts. You remember, like, David Johnson took him a year and a half, it seems like, to become relevant and actually get the usage that he should have been getting back in, I believe it was 2016, when he absolutely dominated. Guy won me a couple fantasy championships. It's like, you're seeing what he's doing on the field, Bruce Arians. Why aren't you putting this guy in the game? I think we might see a little bit from that from Vaughn as well, kind of like the prove-it mentality when bringing these rookies in. So I think this is RoJo's backfield to lose. And I mean, based on everything you said there, I have no reason to believe that he's going to let his opportunity slip away. He has a ceiling there that I think a lot of running backs, especially at that ADP, just do not have.